Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching the Blair and Company. My name is Joshua Blair, and today I have a special guest for the Black Kings Project. I have Mike Spencer on the line. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. So what we're going to do is this is the Black Kings Project, and what we normally talk about on the Black Kings Project is we focus on just different African American males that are doing well in the community, and just talk about their successes and the obstacles they had to go through to get to their success. So we're just going
Uh,
to talk about your upbringing, just talk about what you have going on personally, professionally, and we're just going to chop it up.
sure, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So, where are you originally from?
Wow. So originally I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
And I moved to North Carolina, Charlotte, North. Yeah, shout out anybody watching. Shout out to anybody from New York. But a lot of people they're gonna be like, "Well, you lived in North Carolina more." So I moved to North Carolina when I was 10, to Charlotte, North Carolina. My father moved us here. He was working at TIAA Cref, which moved to Charlotte at the time. They're still in Charlotte, but they established their office in North Carolina in Charlotte in the university area. So anyway, at this point, North Carolina is my home. Of course, I still go back home to New York and see my family and stuff like that. But yeah,
Okay, okay. What's your favorite thing about Charlotte?
favorite thing about Charlotte. I guess the growth opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Where like if you talk about a place like maybe Atlanta or California, New York, whatever, those big name cities, they kind
Yeah.
of already have a established presence. Whereas I
Mm-hmm.
think New York, Charlotte is growing and it's big now. It's a major city, but there's still so much opportunity to kind of give it an identity if you're like doing whatever, if you're in real estate, banking, if you're an entrepreneur, those kind of things. So that's
Yeah,
right.
most definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you have like a favorite like restaurant or like place to hang out at here?
Here in
Yeah, here in Charlotte.
So I'm not even in Charlotte anymore, bro.
Oh,
Actually,
wow.
yeah. So I probably should have kept going. So yeah, so I moved to Charlotte, then I moved like 10 minutes outside of Charlotte. Then I went to school at Winston-Salem State University, joined the
Mm-hmm.
military, do that whole thing, deploy. And then when I graduated, I was working in Winston, but still living in Charlotte. And then I got a job opportunity that brought me to Durham, North Carolina. So I actually
Oh,
live in
okay.
Durham now. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep.
Okay, so how you like it in Durham?
Durham is cool. It's kind of the same response. I really, really like. So Raleigh is one of the top cities for Black entrepreneurs, and it's an A+ market. So as far as for what I'm doing, I love it. But also it's big. Like, so if I'm not mistaken, I think the population in Raleigh is like 100,000 more people. And the reason why I'm saying Raleigh, even though I live in Durham, is because they're so close. Like
Mm-hmm.
Raleigh
And
compared
then people can say Raleigh Durham when
yeah,
they put
the
them together.
triangle.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, I love it because like I know they got this petition to bring an MLB team here. And like so Raleigh, Durham area has like the highest sports viewership without a major league team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's like things like that. In terms of real estate, there's so much opportunity. Houses sell on the market here like within like sometimes 30 days, 15 days, like they move quick. So it's growing rapidly,
Mm-hmm.
especially Wake County. And for me, what I want to accomplish, I think there's even more opportunity here sometimes than there is in Charlotte. So I
Oh,
love
okay.
it,
That's
man.
good. That's good.
Airport
And
right
I'm
up
just
the
saying,
street, like
yes,
I
I
love
definitely understand.
it.
But I just feel
No,
like North Carolina in a whole is just on the up and up.
absolutely, for real, for real. Especially like with major cities kind of getting so expensive, like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's wanting to come to North Carolina. It's like here in so the Triangle, this is considered the East Coast Silicon Valley, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's very tech, a lot of tech opportunities here. So like for me, I love it. I think North Carolina is where it's at, honestly. And it's crazy because when I was young, I used to be like, man, get me out of here. It's boring. I don't want to stay here. But like now, I love it. I'm gonna be honest, I love it. Yep.
That's good. That's good. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing and some of the people that influenced you growing up.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with my parents. My mother and my father are entrepreneurs at heart. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my father was always into like business. At a young age, he was reading about real estate and stuff like that. He was fast. He could run track, but he didn't play sports because he felt like a lot of black people were. It's like we were appreciated for our bodies more than our minds, and
Mm-hmm.
and he had asthma anyway. So by the time he was able to kind of outgrow his asthma, had already grown his mind. So he was like always into that. He used to, he told me he used to say this thing to himself called black man. And if he watches this, he's probably gonna be like, "Oh man, you just airing everything out about me." But yeah, and then my mother, she's like super smart, super smart, talented woman um who just like has a knack for like closing deals and just leveraging opportunities and things like that. So the
Mm-hmm.
two of them were some of my biggest influences. And then I guess outside of family, um, next would be like I always joke and say Jay-Z's my mentor. So
Mm-hmm.
um so Sean Carter, hopefully he's watching this too, and he can be like, "Oh yeah, man, I did a good job mentoring you, man." No, but yeah, so celebrities, stuff like that. Um, later in life, it would have been people that I like met on campus in college,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman was like Dr. Dawn Henderson. She was one of my mentors and advisors for something I created in college called the cardboard box theory, which
Mm-hmm.
basically talked about the value of black men and trying to determine whether black men were kind of uh, considered valueless. Let's just put it
Mm.
like that. And I was able to prove that. But anyway, she was somebody like in college, or Dr. Monell, and
Yes.
just people like that. I kind of got away from the celebrity sense and said like we're the average everyday people. It can't just be celebrities, or
Yes.
known public figures. So yeah.
And that's good. That's good that you able to have, going back to your parents, you're able to have like parents that had like an entrepreneur mindset. And especially I loved when your dad said he didn't want to focus more. He didn't like the fact that like people that was not African American focus more on our bodies and not on our mind. And I
Exactly.
felt like that is so important,
Yeah.
especially like in today's age. And I feel like we've always been judged on just our capabilities outside of sports or entertainment. And I
Yep.
feel like that's important. And I commend him for not sticking just on that certain mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. I'm always, and as you get older as a kid, you don't realize those things. You're like, man, I want to rap, or I want to be an actor or whatever. And media is dominated by, you know, the complete opposite of what you and I are trying to do right now. And
Mm-hmm.
and so as you get older, you appreciate the fact that you come from an upbringing where you have been challenged to take ownership of your mind more than you do of your body. So like when I graduated high school, I had opportunities to play sports. I played football, I ran track. And there were some schools that like, come play football. Like, but by the time I graduated, when I was graduating my senior year, I was like, no, I just want to go to college and kind of make an identity for myself that is not sports. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to have to, I always wanted to own a business. I always wanted to do that. Didn't know how, didn't know what.
Yeah.
But I knew it was like, I just wanted to always change that stigma. And you asking this question, even for me, is admitting like, wow, I need to be even more grateful for my parents for that. They mentioned it enough times in my life to where, because they didn't push me to be an entrepreneur. They was like, be a doctor, be an engineer,
Yeah.
do something with computers, but I started with psychology and I ended up here. So it's like,
Exactly.
yeah.
So it's important. It's just crazy how like just the people around us could just influence on what we want to do.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes. So moving on from that, so what was just growing up like? What was like a typical day for you, like just growing up as a child?
So, see, I moved in Charlotte. It was different than New York, and even
Okay.
though I remember both. So, which one do you want me to tell you more about?
You can tell both. It doesn't
Okay.
matter to me. You can tell both.
So in New York, when I was young enough to remember, I would I wake up, go to school. It was me, my grandmother, and my father, and
Mm-hmm.
she owned a brownstone in New York. So of course, it made no sense for me and my dad to go live somewhere else if my grandmother owns a whole brownstone and there's apartments in there. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Uh-huh.
it was me, my grandmother, and my father. And I go to school. My dad worked third shift again at TIA Cref, so I would
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time with my grandmother. And so I'm part Jamaican, so
Mm-hmm.
she's an immigrant from Jamaica,
Oh,
and
okay.
so like she would be imparting so much information that I realize more now than I
Yeah.
did then. You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so I did this thing called SCORE. I was a troublemaker kid, but I was always smart. But
Mm-hmm.
I was a troublemaker kid. So like my dad tried to, put my energy. So I did things like karate. And then that just wasn't a good idea after that. So it wasn't. So he took me out of that. And
Uh-huh.
it goes back to using your mind over your body, even though karate, it starts from the mind and then builds, with your body. But anyway, that was a terrible idea at the time. So I go to SCORE, and that was a place where I used to struggle with math, like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of kids do. And SCORE allowed me to learn how to teach myself the concepts instead of looking at what somebody else was doing, kind of break down what the basis was. So I'm in SCORE, and they had like reading, writing, and arithmetic. And
Mm-hmm.
the reading and the writing weren't really struggle areas for me. But my dad, I would go to that, come home. My dad would have these books for me, these like workbooks. And like I had to do grammar in there. I had to do like English in there, math. And he had this chalkboard for me, and I had to do like stuff from the dictionary, and like I had to write stuff like 10 times each and then do my homework. And then like we would go over my homework early in the morning when he would get off. And then I would go to school and do that over again every single day. So of course
Mm-hmm.
I would still play and other things, but like I said, I was a troublemaker. So my dad was like, as much as he could put, learning because
Mm-hmm.
he knew the rest of my time was going to be video games or playing with toys or just trying to get into something that I shouldn't have been. And moving to North Carolina, it became a little bit more lax. And I think
Okay.
the reason why is because you can't like get on a subway or a bus and kind of go wherever you want. There's no corner stores. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like the way it's more rural here, and
Yeah.
having had that was what really transformed who I am today, because I was a very like confident young black boy, and
Mm-hmm.
I just thought I knew everything. I thought I knew everything, man. I'm telling you. And so coming here to North Carolina, it was more like go to school, come back. I have siblings as well. So me and my brother would go outside like all evening, do our
Mm-hmm.
homework, maybe in the morning we go. Like I was a good test taker, so things that arrogance, would come into play where I'd be like, well, I know I'm gonna pass this test, and having been prepared for school, with those workbooks and things that my dad gave me, just made school like on the back burner. I'm like, I'm gonna perform anyway, like don't matter. And that's kind of what my day to day would be like go to school, come home, I would do my homework sometimes, but if I wanted to just go outside and play, it was like a basketball court. Like we would be outside like all day, I mean all night, and come back home at like 10, or maybe not 10, but like, when it was dark, come
Yeah.
back home and take a shower, watch TV, play some video games, maybe do some homework, just like the typical kid, nothing super fancy or anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And that's good. I've never heard. Well, mine. I can say for me, it's kind of similar for me because my dad's a professor,
Okay.
and he was very on it when it comes to like education.
Mm.
Like we had to go, and my parents was like we had to do workbooks and stuff, and we had to do our
Mhm.
homework and stuff. But it wasn't to the level like the way you was explaining it. So
Yo, my dad, yo, I was reading about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X at like 6, bro. Like my parents, when it came to education,
hmm
I mean, I played, and the reason why I played was because I would be like, let me hurry up and get this thing done so I can go play, you know?
yeah.
But I wasn't a super fan of learning. I just wanted to be smart. That was
hmm
kind of the thing. But yeah, my parents, man.
But
Yeah.
that's important though. Like they were training you up to know
Yep.
just disciplining you on education and the
Yep.
importance of it.
Yep.
And that makes a big difference.
Yep.
And it builds your confidence when you're in school. And I
Yep.
definitely commend them for that.
Yep. 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 That's a great way of putting it. That's exactly what it was. And again, as a kid, you don't realize that you're just doing it, right?
hmm
And you're rushing through this as fast as you can to learn. But in the process, you're also learning how to take in information really fast. You're
Yeah.
also learning these because it's not like my parents wasn't going to check it. Like they would be like, that's one thing I used to struggle with as a kid. I never checked over my work. And I still kind of have that habit, but now putting out content and things myself,
hmm
I scrutinize over checking over and over again to the best of my ability, and asking other people what their opinion is. But as a kid, one thing I used to struggle with was like I would always mess up spelling girl and grill.
Oh.
Always. I would right. My dad would be like, I want you to read this and tell me what this says. And I would read it and he would be like, so why didn't you check it? Like he would be so upset. And I would be like, I just you know,
Okay.
it was yeah. So you're absolutely right. Like training you up to be prepared for what this world actually has for you. And me and my dad have those conversations more now, and I tell him like, man, like for you to have been a black father and thought in that way, like about how you wanted your son, not saying I want you to be better than me, but actually like introducing these things into my life at such a young age, like telling me to read books like Think and Grow Rich. You know, everybody else in school talking about Harry Potter. I'm like, man, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich. I'm writing about, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yes.
make a huge difference. And even reflecting, I wonder what my teachers were like. Yo, this kid is reading this. Like, I'm writing my papers on Think and Grow Rich. This kid over here talking about, like I said, Harry Potter or something like that. And that would be a book that I was allowed to more be pushed to read more like third grade versus in middle school, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it. Yeah, for sure.
And
It's a
that's
big
good
difference.
because it just shows he saw so much bigger.
Yes.
He saw the bigger picture. So
Yes.
I just feel like that's just amazing. I feel like I commend him for that.
Yes. Thank you. I'm gonna let him
Mhm.
know. Well, he gonna see this, so so he'll know. Yeah.
So from transitioning from that, so once you got to high school, how was high school for you? Like, how was that process like?
So in middle school, I looked at middle school I looked at it like, okay, I don't really like I'm gonna perform well, but I don't really care. High school, I was like, I always knew I wanted to go to college, right?
hmm
But I never cared about going to the best. Like I didn't want to go to Yale or Harvard. I kind of looked at it like they would look at me because I'm a black boy with their nose up. I looked at them like y'all think y'all too good. I don't want to be around people like that. You know, I just had an inkling for that, and my mother would
hmm
always talk about that with me. And so high school was like I knew I had to get good grades. I knew that most black boys didn't have the opportunity to perform as well as I did. I didn't understand why that was because I
hmm
thought I thought all our parents was giving us workbooks and doing all of this
Nope.
stuff. I didn't realize that wasn't a thing. And so I would be in school like, you know, I would perform well on the tests. I did well on the test. I didn't study. I would do my papers and stuff at the last minute. But again, my parents preparing me, I was ahead of the curve that I
Exactly.
had to be at for EOG level 4. I was past that, so I would perform, do well. And in high school is when I started playing sports. So I
Mm-hmm.
played outside in middle school and stuff, but in high school is when I actually like played football. I played
Mm-hmm.
basketball. I ran track. And my freshman year, this is what probably changed the trajectory of high school. It was one of the first things I couldn't just go do and just automatically be good at. Like I
Yeah.
was athletic naturally, but in terms of understanding the sport and how you had to be intentional, it took time. So now I'm like in my mind constantly like, yo, I gotta get better at this. And so
Mm-hmm.
it drowned out a lot of things for me too, which I guess that's the whole reason why, parents put their kids in sports.
Yeah.
So, but my parents, again, they were not the ones that wanted me to use my body more than my mind. So
Yes.
this was something I did on my own. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
encourage it. They were not like, okay, let's get you the best cleats. Like none of those things. It was
Uh-huh.
like, I mean, you do that, but anyway, how are your grades?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like you're not going to play in the NFL. Like, so what it did was it told me this was the first time my parents didn't encourage that confidence the same way. And so what
Mm-hmm.
it did was it gave me the perspective of understanding, well, maybe I'm not good enough, right? Like maybe I
Mm-hmm.
did. So then by the time I get to a senior, I actually can play now. So there's an
Yeah.
option for me to go play in college. But my parents are still not encouraging go play in college. Like that's
Yeah.
they like, so you gonna get this academic scholarship or what I'm saying? Like, yeah, okay, I know you can play football. Yeah, like that's great, but can you go get this academic scholarship? Like, what are those grades looking like? Like, you got
Yeah.
all A's this semester, and again, like not having that support subconsciously was a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not one that I wanted to admit because I performed so well in class. I still
Yeah.
had a charismatic personality. And it was one of the first things that I'm like, why don't my parents want me to be good at both? You know?
Mm.
But because of like growing up now, I understand had they pushed that, again, seeing the image allows you to be falling in line. So there's even more support because the world's telling you to go do this thing. Now your parents are okay in it. And you're not gonna pay. I didn't care about academics. I just wanted to be smart. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not like I was like, okay, I'm good at sports now. All right, let me go do my homework. Like, no, it was gonna be, I'm good at sports. My parents say I can play sports. All right, I'm gonna go play
And
sports.
that's where all your energy is gonna go.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what high school was like for me, man. Yep.
That's
But I would go
crazy.
out day-to-day basis. I wake up late because I didn't want to go to school. I hated school, by the way. I always hated it. I used to tell my parents, like, if you teach me everything you know, I don't have to go to school. And they're like, that's really smart of you. I'm a little kid saying this, but you're still
Mhm.
going. Like, so I always hated school. I get to school off the school bus, go to class. I'm talking out of turn. Again, I'm arrogant about my intelligence instead of saying, I'm smart, but what can I do to be way further? How can I get
Mhm.
these AP classes earlier? How can I do early college? Like thinking in those ways. I wasn't that kid. I said, this is where I'm at. I'm above the average, but I'm not trying to set the standard.
Yeah.
And my parents would be constantly teaching this, but puberty comes into play. So it's
Mhm.
harder for them to force me to do it
Yeah.
versus um, encouraging me to do it. So I'm playing football now, playing sports in general, getting out of the day to day, go to practice. Maybe I have a game, come home, do my homework, and do it all over again. I mean, I had a girlfriend. Maybe I go outside with my friends all night and day. It's still doing this. Like that didn't change,
Yeah.
and that would be what it was. Honestly, that was my day to day. That's high school for me.
And I had a question. So I remember you had just said when you had noticed when you would start doing sports and you noticed that you had to really like focus,
Mm-hmm.
like you said you were like you did like you was working and doing sports or whatever, but when you actually start playing sports in school, you know, there was like a certain techniques that you had to learn. Did that discourage you in the beginning? Like you felt like as if you did, like, am I supposed to be doing this, or like?
Yes, it was what it was. It was discouraging because the part that I was missing was how are these other kids so good at this? Like, at what point did they start playing? What point where did I miss this? How did you? And I felt like, how could I ever close this gap? Why are the coaches even allowing me to play when they know I can't play like this? Like, I don't know the game in this way, but somehow they still. So there was so many other thoughts that I'll be like, how do I have the time to go home and practice to catch up? Like, I want to catch up, you know? And you hear stories about Michael Jordan. It's like, yo, he practiced so much. I'm thinking in my mind, like, when did he find time to do that? Like, I don't understand. And I didn't have a car in high school. So it's not like I could just drive to school and practice after hours or before hours. I didn't have those things. And we didn't have a basketball goal at my house and things like that. So I would be trying to take every opportunity I could to get better, but still at the same time struggling to figure out how to get better. So it did make me say maybe I shouldn't do this. I'd be in practice like, yo, this kid is big and he knows what he's doing. Like, how am I supposed to get good?
And then I figured, like, since you felt like you were so good at doing everything else, when it came to this thing, it was just like, why am I not getting this?
Yep. It was hard. It was hard, man. It was. And what changed it for me was my freshman year. I'm at practice and special teams in football, if you know what that is, it's like golf. And I remember they were trying to recruit, like find people that could do that. And one practice on Mondays was like hitting day, you know. So that was one thing I hated the most about football. Like, I did not like getting hit. So I had to play defense. I didn't mind hitting somebody, but don't come hit me. So I remember one practice, like, I was just so upset that day and just so focused. Like, a level of focus I just now figured out how to turn on now in my life. I remember that practice. I was like, yeah, that's how I need to practice. But the next day I wake up and I felt nothing like I did that day. So I didn't know how to do it. So anyway, but that practice, I remember I hit somebody. I tapped like a good player and it was a good tackle. My coach was like, we need you on special teams. This is the spot you need to be at. And all I want you to do is run down the field as fast as you can and hit that player. And that was how I was able to learn and get better at the sport. That was the first time that I ever got any validation. That was the first in football, like, I guess from people that I felt like knew what they were doing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really what the turning point was for me in terms of playing. Because I get into a game, first game doing the special teams thing, first kickoff, and I smack the player, we get a fumble, and they're like, yeah, you know, they're so happy. But at the time, like, I didn't, you know, and from that point on, I was always on special teams, and I get better, and I get more playing time, and, you know, those things happen. But still, my parents are like, yeah, okay, anyway. So, yeah.
Okay, so after that, after high school, did you go straight to college after high school, or did you go to the Army after high school? Okay.
I did, straight to college, 2011.
Okay.
I remember the recruiters being in high school. I never had plans. I'm like, I don't want to. My own personal cultural biases were the reasons why I never saw myself in the military. And my family, I didn't like grow again. Like, my father had like raising me. I didn't see military. I see it in the movies, and I'm like, yo, these people is tripping. I don't want to do none of that, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I went straight to college.
Okay.
And I joined the military while in college.
Oh, okay. So how was that transition? Just getting in it and just how you had to adjust to that?
So, believe it or not, man, when I did play football in high school, I was a hustler. I was into the technique. I was into like working hard. Work ethic is something that kind of always had been there for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I prided myself on getting better. And the small things like perseverance and, just like thinking about the team being bigger than you, um, not trying to be a spoon-fed kid, like those were things that like my coaches never had to harp on me about.
Yeah.
And so those translated to the Army because that's what it's about. So
Mm-hmm.
when I get to Winston-Salem State, my freshman year had no like I never wanted to play. I never planned on joining the military as a
Mm-hmm.
freshman. What happened was after my freshman, well, that's slightly true. Not initially first semester. What
Okay.
happens is I finish my first semester and I do pretty well, and then I'm like reading this book and I'm like, it's called 15. I think it's called 21 Irrefutable Laws of Growth or something like that. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the title by John Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, that my winter break, I'm reading that, and I'm like, no, this is what I want for myself. I wanna get here. I wanna do this. I wanna do that. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I'm writing down is, I said, what can I do to where I can be an untouchable black man, almost like what my father said about being this black man, this superhero. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I can do that, I'll be unstoppable. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna join the military, right? Because then as a veteran, they'll respect me, and I'll never have to go anywhere, and they'll be like, who's this black boy? Because I'm in this waking up state as a freshman. Because
Mm-hmm.
Barack Obama is the president at this time, and I got a chance to vote for him in his second election.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like looking at the state of black people, and I'm thinking all of this stuff like, yo, we need to start getting ready for when he's out of office. Like, how can I? So all of these kind of thoughts are affecting me. And being on the HBCU campus, I'm like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
like if we gotta, I'm thinking all this stuff, and I'm trying to tell people, and nobody's like, they're like,
Nobody's getting it.
yeah, they're like, yo, why don't you get your degree and focus on that later? And I'm like, no, we gotta start focusing now. So I'm write this plan. I say I'm gonna join the military. At the time, I was studying psychology, and I'm like, first of all, I hated it. The classes were so boring to me, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't getting to where I ultimately wanted to go. So I said, and then we had some family hardship type stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I said, I always want to be able to take care of my family, and that's really what kind of changed, got my mind working in these ways to notice all of this stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I say, and I'm going to be an attorney.
Okay.
If I do these three things, I'll be unstoppable. Nobody will ever be, I'll be able to provide for my family. My kids
Mm-hmm.
will have the respect naturally because of me. And just, I'll be able to open doors and all of this stuff. And so that mindset took me to take ROTC
Mm-hmm.
at Winston my sophomore year, just to see if I would actually like it. I
Okay.
did that, and ROTC was straight. Um, and the people in there are like, yo, you're good at this thing. Like, you should really consider, joining and doing all of this. And basic training is going to be easy for you. Like, just do it. So that's kind of what happened. I do that because I took those steps. I had already planted it in my mind. I took a course to kind of get a perspective. Then I go to basic training, and because I did that, I met people who had already done it, who could prepare me and tell me what to expect. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I started running. I started working out. I did those things early to get an idea, and all I did was show up and shut up and then perform. And that made me, put me ahead of the curve in the military.
See, and that's another way, another thing that you did, like just being ahead of the game when everybody else was just like still like a deer in headlights on what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and that's good that you were able to just meet up with people that had been through it already,
Mm-hmm.
and they prepared you on what you want or how
Mm-hmm.
to get through it. So yeah, that was very important.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to put it. You summed that up well. Yep. So the transition, that made it easy, especially being at Winston and doing that. Winston had ROTC. Wake Forest was our partner, and I got
Mm-hmm.
to see what the black soldier looked like, the minority soldier, and then I got
Mm-hmm.
to see what the Army was actually going to be like, you know, and that allowed me to position myself like you mentioned, and just kind of get ahead of the curve instead of being a deer in the headlights. Even though I had never shot a gun, I had never like a lot of stuff I just never did. Never went in a gas chamber before, gas mask and all that. But those were little things that I knew that, you know, I could, once I could get over. The hardest transition though for me was shooting the gun. Not because I was scared of it, but because there was a level of technique to it. Kind of like that the army, the football thing. There was
Yeah.
a technique that still I was learning in my mind how to be so focused in the moment. So that way you are paying attention to each individual part of this process to perform well. And that, man, that was hard. I mean, I remember I was like stiff in my body trying not to, there's a shot that comes when you're shooting. So I'm like trying to stiff in my body, trying to, you know, aim and look
Yeah.
through this little sight glass. You got to fire like 500 yards and hit, you know, 20 plus targets out of 40. And I'm like, man, how are these people doing? And women naturally pick up the process of shooting. Whereas men, you're either going to be a good shot or a terrible shot. Like
Yeah.
but women fall in this, like they're likely to get 30 out of 40, 35 out of 40 targets. Whereas a guy, it's I don't know how our brains work per se. I'm still learning that even to this day. But there's something that in our mind, it has to click in order for us to excel.
Yeah.
But when we do, we're more likely to get 40 out of 40 than you know, women. And it's an interesting process. It's deep. At least that's what they told me while I was in.
But that's true though. That's true though.
Yeah. So cool stuff, man. Would I do it again? I would do basic training again.
Oh, okay. I can see it because you'll know like what to expect and how to be above the curve again. So.
Yeah, man.
So how was your college experience? Because I went to Winston as well, so I know.
Right.
So how was it? Just your experience at Winston?
You want the whole truth, or just like?
But this is the Black Kings project. We could.
Yeah. All right, so man, when I get to Winston 2011, first of all, the world prepared me to be around white people more than it prepared me to be around Black intellectuals. I read about Black intellectuals, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, like I'm reading about them. But I other than my parents and my own family, I'm not seeing that. So what I'm still getting is, oh, okay, yeah, we might have political leaders or whatever, but like Robert F. Smith, I don't know who that is. And he's during our time. Right?
Yeah.
He created Vista and all of that. I got a Windows Vista computer in high school, and I didn't even know that this man was the reason why it happened, right?
Yeah.
So when I get to Winston, it's when I get to be in this Black intellectual space and see, like, I'm like, yo, y'all, like Dr. Little, I'm like, you was a Black Panther, like, that's crazy, you know? I meet Jack Monell, I'm like, wow, I'm meeting the chancellors and all of these people. And I'm like, yo, these are the reasons why the Martin Luther Kings and the Malcolm X's were who they were and got to get that leg up. And I'm putting the pieces together. But I'm in that space where I tell you, yo, we gotta get our heads right. Like I'm like, what are we doing? I'm thinking all of that. And it put me in a state of depression, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and the person that I'm seeing is not the person that I want to be. And so it caused me to stay in my room a lot. I did not leave. If you ever talk to my roommate, man, I did not leave my room. I didn't want to go eat in the caf because I'm constantly trying to figure out, like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I'm in this shell space, so I'm not going to class. I'm looking and I'm like, these classes are not going to help me get to here. Like, I'm not trying to save the world per se, but I want to be a part of a bigger change than what I'm seeing, because I know I can look and I'm like, yo, this is what's about to happen. This police brutality stuff. Next thing you know, Trayvon Martin happens. I'm like, see, y'all, I told you. Still, I don't have the solution. So it doesn't mean anything. Like everybody else. But at the time, I don't realize that. Yeah. I don't realize what can I actually do to be the change I want to see. And I was a writer. and I
Mm-hmm.
love music. So I'm thinking like, I'm gonna be a rapper and I'm gonna put this in the bars, but nobody wants to hear this. So I'm a J. Cole fan, I'm a Kendrick fan, I'm a Tupac fan. I'm like, yo, I'm not cool enough to figure out how can I do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's it. But I still I'm charismatic, as you can see. So I still make friends.
Yeah.
I had great friends. That's where I met my best friend at. From day one,
Mm-hmm.
my roommate, my best friend, we are all still friends now. This is
Mm-hmm.
2011. We about to be friends for 10 years at this point.
Years.
Some of
Mm-hmm.
the best friends that I have, and you know, they tell you like who you make in your college years and your friend, those are not going to be your friends when you get done. And that wasn't the case for me. So there's that, but also having that struggle internally, trying to figure out what I want to do and going to class and feeling like this is not it until I come up with that plan of being in business. I struggled. At one point, I had a 1.2 GPA, bro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was on academic probation, and I would go and talk to these advisors, and they'd be like, yo, you're not partying, you're just not going to class. And I'm like, I'm not going to class because I want to accomplish this. But this is not, I don't see how this is connecting. I don't see how my professors are giving me the tools I really, really need. And I didn't want to be in political science. That wasn't something I was interested in. I didn't ever want to be a politician. That was never in my plans. But joining the military is really what allowed me to learn how to execute. Because and that was one reason why I joined. I wanted leadership. I wanted to persevere. I wanted to get off procrastination. I wanted to learn how you take an idea and put it all the way through to execution. And so joining the military in college transformed my college experience. So I went from being somebody who didn't go to class and all these things to, okay, going back to learning math. How do I teach myself? I can't do this the way I see everybody else doing it. I got to create my plan for me and understand it for me. And then go, I can't expect that I'm going to read and follow the template that somebody else did. Because if it's up to me, I'm just going to duplicate what everybody else is doing and that's it. But the reality is that the examples that I want to see in the world, you know, when you're a Black boy, like it's so much harder than that. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have a bunch of Steve Jobs. That's just not the reality. We have Michael Jordan, great athlete. We have Robert F. Smith. We now know about him doing what he did at Morehouse. But when I was a young boy, like we didn't have social media like that, you know? So there's, even though I'm a millennial, we're millennials, the younger kid gets to see some of those other things
that we didn't get to see.
We didn't get to see. And you already get to see, but they're also seeing police brutality on a grand scale. They have new traumas that they have to face that us, you know, you and I did not necessarily face in the same way. So college was great. I get in leadership positions. I get to really take those ideas that I have in my mind and try to be the change I want to see affect young Black men, go out in the community and really do work and just really try to get that same message like, yo, we got this stuff, yo, like Barack Obama's about to be out. We got to get out here. We got to do this. How we got to get our political office. And again, I ain't care about politics, but somehow, you know, I'm a spiritual guy. I believe in God and God has a way in my life of like, I'll say I don't want to do this thing. He'll put like the small thing that I do like in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then by engaging, he knows that I will engage in the process kind of without asking questions. And the next thing you know, I'm looking back like, I ain't never wanted to be, I'm running for a campus position. I got to wear a suit and tie and sit in front of, I didn't want to do that, but I'm a sacrificer. So I didn't think twice about how that was going to look like this because my goal was I want to help here. And because that's what it was, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to that. And next thing you know, I'm walking into it, but I'm not doing it the way everybody else is per se. You know, I'm not losing the essence of my character in the process. So that was college, man. I loved it. I got to live 2 lives, man. I really did. And so it worked out for me. Yeah.
And that's good. That just how you started originally. You were in your room and you wasn't going to school, or you wasn't going to class, and
Hmm.
then how you came out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, man. Like I said, I had like a 1.2 GPA, and I didn't necessarily reach my goal of completely bouncing back, but I was damn close to it. And retaking all those classes, I mean, I had to take 12 credit summers, 18 credit semesters. I did that from the point when I came back from basic and I changed my major to finance
Mm-hmm.
all the way to graduating. Every summer I'm taking not between 9 to 12 credits. And when I
Mm.
say every summer, I mean there was only like one summer where I only took like 9. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm looking at the paradigm, like what courses are offered in the summer, talking to these professors, like, okay, I'm not going to take this course during the year. I'm planning out the whole thing. And I took like 90 or 100 plus credits
That's
within.
crazy.
Yes, bro. Yes. I mean, and I still deployed, right? So when I come back from deployment from spring 2016 to spring 2018, that is when I took the bulk of my courses and my classes. And so when I think about that bounce back thing, I had to begin to kind of pat myself on the back because it's like I did a lot during that time in 2 years where joining
Mm-hmm.
SGA and just joining clubs and doing research projects and traveling and all of those different kind of things to where it was like you would never know that this one person did both of these experiences. I was the student who did not leave their room, yo. I didn't go to parties. I didn't do nothing, man, for real.
Mm-hmm.
And it was yeah. Culture shock.
Yeah.
Winston made for sure.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yep.
So how has the transition been since you graduated? Did you graduate class of 2018? Correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're the same class.
Mhm.
So how has graduation been, or how has it been after graduation? How has life been treating you since then?
Life after graduation has been amazing. One thing that I tell people to do is get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been the check mark to a lot of my success. Of course, because of God, but aside from that, like my it allowed me to understand what resumes look like now. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just that paper, but it's more so like how do you present yourself in this digital world? LinkedIn allowed me to get some of the best jobs that I could have gotten to prepare me the most for the entrepreneurship that I'm doing now. And so I guess I always had an entrepreneur spirit like we talked about, this content creator, those things,
Mm-hmm.
but that one of the jobs that I've had is sales, and
Mm-hmm.
not just sales like retail sales, but like high level. You know, I'm working with ExxonMobil selling oil to
Mm-hmm.
businesses, and I'm learning things about pain. How do you find the pain that a customer is having, so that way you can solve their problem? It's just a lot of different techniques that translate. I got to be an entrepreneur. I got to be an entrepreneur without the overhead costs, if you know what
Mm-hmm.
that is.
Yeah.
And learning that, I did digital marketing for a company called Inmar, which was a coupon company that became a tech company. And I learned so much in those two spaces that
Yeah.
combined with my previous experiences in college. So life after graduation has been a blessing, honestly. Um, and it really coupled with my go-getter personality. These were not careers that I went to college and I was a young boy like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sell oil. Like that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But because of how the opportunities and the things that I sought after in college,
Mm-hmm.
I ultimately got to continue what I did in college in post grad. I just didn't get a chance to like live in a dorm
Yeah.
room. Yeah, man. Yep.
But that's good though that you were able just to get that experience. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about, I've seen you on social media. So tell me a little bit about the Triangle podcast. Like, what is it about? What made you want to start it? Like, I've been interested. So what's
Yeah,
what's it
yeah.
about?
For sure, for sure. So Triangle Podcast is a podcast where I host with my hostess, uh, the Jasmine Orlandis. Don't forget the V because there's only one she. And what happened was I was on YouTube and I never had, again, another thing, I never planned on having a podcast. That wasn't a thing for me. I tried this in college. That kind of fell through because we didn't have the dedication to continue. We all had so much going on. It was going to be cool, but it just didn't happen. And me and her, I'm on YouTube and I see this app called Black. And I'm like, man, what is this Black dating app? I don't care about nothing. Like, I don't want to do all that. And I'm like, but you know what? Let me support something that's for Black people. Let me go check it out. I'm gonna download it and just be able to give my opinion on it. So I use it. Within the first like few days, I see her and I match. We're talking, not talking to try to date. We're just friends type stuff. Talking on there. And I'm like, yo, we could have a podcast, like just because of the energy and how we communicate, which you get to see in the episodes. That's how it was from day one. And so she was like, yeah, actually we should. She was like, yeah, we should. And I was like, no, I'm serious. She was like, yeah, me too. I've been wanting to do a podcast since I came home. I was doing a podcast while I was in Charlotte in college. And I'm like, oh, all right, bet. Well, and at this point in my life, last year, 2019, my goal was consistency. So I was doing everything consistency based. So I'm in this execution mindset. And I had just moved to Durham because I only been here for a little over a year now.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we meet literally the first day we meet now. This is all within 2 weeks. A week we meet maybe online like August 18th. I think or August 8th. We met in person like August 13th. So I guess like 5 days, whatever. We meet, we break down the whole podcast that day, which is about what we wanted to cover was health and wellness. We wanted to cover mental health. We wanted to cover a little bit of pop culture, but more so like can you be professional? We wanted to cover the main thing was addressing the elephant in the room. And so, our motto is your story, our story, and the truth. And how that came about was, first of all, we were like, what are we going to call this? And I was like, what about Triangle Podcast? And she was like, Triangle Podcast. And I was like, yeah, because it's your story. They always say there's three sides to a story. Your story, our story, and then the truth. And then she was like, well, that's not how it goes, but that's what we called it. That's what we end. And I was like, but we don't want to say it just like the motto. And I was like, so why don't we do your story, our story, and the truth? She's like, yeah. And I said, yeah, triangle. She's like, yeah, that's perfect. And I was like, yeah, the dope thing is like we're in the triangle. That's where we met. But there's also the fact of like, when you look up the shape of a triangle means change, delta, all of those different kind of things. So we incorporated, okay, this naturally came to us, but how can we make this make sense beyond that? And that's the nature that her and I just both have. So it just blossomed from there. We met like one or two, we would meet at like 5:30 a.m. She would come to Durham. And at the time she was looking for a job because she had just come home from college. And so her and I are both early birds. So I was like, well, before I can go to work, we can meet in the morning at 5:30 on Mondays. So we would meet on Monday at 5:30, plan. We came up with so much. We would come up with so much in just hour spans of time. Yeah. And that's literally how it happened, man. So yeah, our podcast is it's bags to business, mental health, and relationships. And those are the things that we always plan to talk about. We pick a topic, we go on it. It's about addressing the taboo. We talked about transgender. I don't know how many of the episodes you've gotten a chance to watch, but tomorrow an episode that's dropping. I mean, people are not going to get a chance to see. They'll see the episode maybe before they see this part, but the episode that is dropping, what's today, the 25th or something like that?
Today is the 27th.
27. So May 28th, it's about do Black people play the victim? That's what's dropping tomorrow. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I love the content, and I love just what y'all talk about. I love the content.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
And okay, so wrap it up. So why are you considered a Black king?
Why am I considered a Black king? Man, that's a phenomenal question, man. That's something that you got to pass to somebody before they get here, man. Bring that on somebody. I always aspire to be. My dog's name is Faraha, right? Which is Swahili for joy, right? I call him Ra for short. And there's a bunch of other meanings to it, but Ra is joy in English, but Ra is also, it's like Ra or Re, but that is the Egyptian sun god. And so he's a boy, so he's my son, but he's my son because he brings joy and, it brings it all together. I did that because Egypt is one of the main, like the biggest, I think, images I have of what a king looks like, a Black king looks like. And so I always aspire to I always wanted to be, when they would ask me as a kid, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be king of the world. What? That's the job occupation I want. Forget all the rest. And I had this image in my mind of like being able to take care of and lead people, but also have a lot of things for free. And being older, understanding the Bible more is dominion of God gives us dominion of the earth. And so for me, it's being able to have dominion over the ideas, being able to have dominion over my life, and being able to kind of model this representation for people, but lead in a class way, in an elite class way that says, I'm not the only one who can do this though, right? Like, you come from the same skin cloth that I do, and here's how you get here as well. And we can all be Black kings together. So that's why I'm a Black king, is because I'm willing to do what it takes to show how you reign over this earth that we have been blessed with, not just to myself, but to the world, and teach. Because that's what I think kingship is about, is not just sitting on a throne and filling in your belly, but getting out there and doing the work that it takes to show why you are this standard.
Exactly. So. And that's a perfect way to explain it. I loved it.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
No problem. And so where can we find you on social media? Where can we find you if we want to watch the podcast?
If you want to watch Triangle Podcast, there's some multitude of ways. You can literally go on Google and type in Triangle Podcast, and it should be the first thing that pops up, because we're on Google. So we're within the Google search. So you can do that. If you're on social media, you can look up Mike Spencer. You can also look for the Jasmine Orlandis. You can type in Triangle Podcast. That should pop up, the Triangle Podcast. And if you do go to Mike Spencer's page, though, if you click the link in my bio, it'll show you everything that I'm doing at this point, from my business, Chantel Lux Beauty, to my podcast, Triangle Podcast, to whatever I might be doing just as an entity myself. So, yeah.
And that's that on that. So thank you so much for joining me today, Mike Spencer, for joining me today. Like I said before, my name is Joshua Blair, and you're watching the Blair & Company, and we'll see y'all later.
Peace.